This is J. Krishnamurti's sixth public talk in Madras, 1979-80.
Shall we sit quietly for a while? Rather nice. Not meditate or anything like that. Just sit quietly. Then we can probably observe our own activities of mind, our own behavior, our own conduct, our ways of daily life, our relationship with others, our relationship with each other, intimate or superficial. We have hardly any leisure. We are so occupied from morning till night. And even if we do sleep, our minds, our brains are constantly active, dreaming, unresolved problems being solved consciously, unconsciously, and so on. And in the last 5 talks, talks, we have covered most of the complicated areas of our life. I think we ought to also to talk over this evening sorrow, death, and meditation. On a pleasant evening like this, rather nice cool breeze, to talk about death seems rather irrelevant. There's a lovely sky, and looking at the sky through the leaves, and the strange silence of an evening that seemed to descend on earth about this time, and to talk about the ending of life or death, though irrelevant or maybe relevant, is part of our life, like sorrow. And we want solutions, answers immediately for all our problems. That's what we all expect. Answers to a very complex life. We don't want to examine the complexity, the diversity, the enormous superficial differences, height, color, capacities, skill. And we don't want answers for those superficial problems like business, scientific research, social studies, and so on. But we want answers, psychological answers, solutions for our problems. Probably that's why you're here. These problems can be solved immediately. That is, if you immediately change your life, if you immediately behave righteously, if you immediately change your relationship with each other completely, that is the final absolute answer for your problems. But we won't. Because our brains are accustomed, trained to postpone, to put up, to acquiesce, to yield, never inquiring, never going into the problem very deeply. We want somebody to tell us what to do. And we have, as human beings, relied for thousands of years on somebody to tell us what to do. Your books, your gurus, your philosophers, the Upanishads, all the rest of it. Probably most of you have read them, but you are where you are in spite of all that. So, the problem is how you approach the problem. Not the problem itself, but how you come to it. This is really very important to understand, because we are going to problems like sorrow, death and meditation, which are very complex. Needs all your attention, all your care, all your passion. So how do you approach any problem, both physical and psychological? How you come to it? What's your motive? What's your intention? What's your end? Because the motive, the direction, the demand for an answer, those prevent the solution of the problem. Because your approach is already directed, is already conditioned, is already, you've already come with a conclusion. The answer must be that. Satisfactory, comfortable, if I can use the word bourgeois, highly respectable, and so on. So it matters very much. If you are serious, if you are willing, to find out for yourself how you approach any problem. If you are a scientist, you approach your problem with a hypothesis and try to prove that hypothesis to be correct. Or if it's not, you reject that hypothesis and pick up another, till through hypothesis you prove the fact. Then from the fact you move to another hypothesis, and so on. You build up a series of activities ending in knowledge. If you are an engineer, or a philosopher, you have your motive is obviously to gain money, to fulfill your ambition, and so on. If you are a philosopher, I don't know if you are, I hope you aren't. If you are a philosopher, there is not only your private life, which is already very complex, but you try to escape from that complexity of relationship through ideas, through a lot of reading and so on. So what is your approach to this problem? The problem of sorrow, problem of death, and what is that thing called meditation? What is meditation? What's your approach? Is it traditional? Is it an escape? Is there a motive that is directing your observation? Or are you free to approach the problem? You understand my question? Because it's only a free mind that can look, that can observe, that can solve the problem. But if you have your prejudices, your conclusions, your concepts, and try to understand the problem through the concept, prejudices and conclusions, you'll never solve them. Because your conclusions, your concepts are going to dictate what the problem should be. So if you approach it freely, then we can look at the problem. Then the problem itself has an answer. You understand? Are we following each other? I must find a face that tells, that can say yes or no. If we have a problem of this kind, sorrow, whether there is an ending to sorrow, and the extraordinary thing called death, and the various forms of meditations that have been cultivated throughout the centuries, those are our problems. As we have dealt with other problems previously in the 5 talks that we have had here, we are now facing these problems. How do you come to it? If you are a traditionalist, you will translate sorrow as something that is the result of what you have done in your past life. And you have solved the problem. At least you think you have. And so you say, next life, it'll be better. During this life, you put up with sorrow. Say that's your karma or whatever word you use, and you put up with it, which is one of our peculiar habits, to put up with anything. Now, a mind that is traditionalist, that says acquiesces, puts up with everything, how can it solve a problem? You want to say human problem, which demands that you inquire, that you look, that you exercise your energy. So, if you will kindly find out for yourself how you approach the problem. Because the approach dictates the answer or the solution. If you approach it freely, the answer is in the problem. That's because problems exist only when you have not comprehended fully, when you have not seen the full context, full implications, the consequences of all that. And that's why it remains a problem. I hope you're following all this. So, if one is at all serious, and one must be serious in a world that is so rapidly declining, degenerating. And if you're at all serious, not intellectually, not verbally, but serious from your heart and your blood, from your guts, then you must inquire, what is your approach to any problem? If you are free, that is, your mind is capable of observing without any pressure, which is very difficult because we always act under pressure. Because overpopulation and disorder and so on, you're acting under pressure. So if you are approaching this problem of sorrow with any kind of pressure, the very ending of it, which becomes a pressure in itself, if there is not any pressure, any urge to find a solution or an answer, then your mind is terribly alive. It's logical. If you're logically minded, which is verbally, carefully explained, then you might say, I intellectually understand. But I can't free myself from the pressures I have, the conditionings of my tradition, my beliefs. So your concern is not then with sorrow, but with your traditions, which is much more important than the ending of sorrow. So you're caught both ways. You understand? Either you come to it freely, openly, without a single shadow of prejudice or pressure, or you realize your own prejudices, your own conclusions and concepts, and end those. Only then you can understand the problem with all its implications. So, if you are prepared, not preparation means time. I don't mean that. If you have listened for what has been said, and that very listening has brought about your attention to your own prejudices, conclusions and concepts, and you put those aside, not for this afternoon or for this evening. When you put them aside, you put them aside. It's not a game we are playing, either intellectual or emotional or romantic. This is a very serious affair. So, we're inquiring, observing, and following the movement of sorrow. You understand? It is not a fixed thing, sorrow. You're put in a cage and you're observing it. It's a great movement of life. A movement that has been started from the beginning of time. So, that movement we have inherited. And also we have acquired. So it's this whole movement, which we name as sorrow, grief, pain, is part of our life. It's part of our daily, everyday life. If you approach freely, which means you're not escaping from it, you're not trying to find, shall I move over there? Go back to your seat, please. It'll be more comfortable. All right, sir. I'm sorry this is in front of me, I can't help it. If you approach it freely, then what is sorrow? It's like the shadow of our life. You can't escape from it. That's the first thing to realize, that there is no possibility of escape from sorrow. We have tried it. We've said it's karma, past life. And so, but the sorrow remains in spite of your convenient, comfortable explanations. Nor can you suppress it by going to the temples, nightclubs, drink, drugs, women or men, whatever you do to escape. You can't escape from this thing. Suppress it, deny it, or put up with it. When you put up with something like sorrow, it destroys your mind. When you put up with the dirt, the squalor of the street, you're not sensitive. Your mind becomes dull. You become insensitive. But if you rebel against it, if you say, I won't have it, then your mind, you begin to be active. So, our theories, concepts, and our religion all over the world has made us insensitive. Has made us dull. So, here is the problem. What is sorrow? Why human beings throughout the ages have never resolved that problem? You understand my question? Why you who must have sorrow, grief, psychological pain, hurt, psychologically hurt, which is part of sorrow, why we go on with it? So one asks, is there an end to it? The ending doesn't mean an explanation, which is, how am I going to end sorrow? You understand? Which means you're asking for a solution of sorrow. And you'll be satisfied if the speaker is stupid enough to give a comfortable answer, which you will naturally say, yes, quite right, I accept that. But the explanation, the answer, doesn't solve your sorrow. A new explanation, new answer will become the old answer in a couple of days. So that will become the tradition. You're following all this? Please, move with me, if you're willing. So we're asking, what is sorrow? what is the relationship between sorrow and passion? We're not talking about lust. Lust is, you know what it is. But then I do. We're asking etymological meaning, passion and sorrow. When you inquire into the question of passion, it comes with the ending of sorrow. You're following all this? Passion means suffering from which arises that passion which is not physical, which is totally the ending of a great burden which man has carried. You understand? Are you following this? Please, sirs, am I talking? Are we meeting each other? Please don't be so mesmerized. You see, the word, we are examining the meaning of words, which is passion and sorrow are interrelated etymologically, the root meaning. Now, when you suppress or escape or try to explain it away, you lose the immense energy that is brought about in passion. You understand? No, please verbally understand it first. That is, sorrow, like passion, are words to indicate a state of mind in which there is great deal of pain, grief, tears, sense of immense loneliness, a sense of isolation. Right? That's how, that when that takes place, you feel great sorrow. Now, feeling that sense of great burden, great grief, pain, we don't know how to resolve it. We have tried explanations, causes, we haven't solved it. But not knowing what to do with it, we try to run away from it, postpone it, all the tricks we play when we want to avoid something. Now, if we don't avoid it and see the full meaning of sorrow, out of that total comprehension, not intellectual comprehension or verbal comprehension, but the total feeling of that brings about passion. And without passion, you can never be free. Yes, sir. Without passion, you can never be creative. You may be creative when you are lustful, but we are not talking about that kind of creation, producing a baby. That's quite easy. But we are talking of something quite different, which is most of us have lost this passion. Because we're not passionate people. Nobody is. They're passionate about something or other. A passionate scientist, passionate writer, a passionate golfer. We're not talking of that kind of passion. A person who observes the movement of sorrow, which is the loss of somebody whom you love or you think you love, the sense of loneliness, the great amount of shedding of tears, the weeping, the sense of isolation, having no relationship with anybody else. Don't you know all this? You're completely isolated. And our minds are so trained, so educated, that when there is this tremendous crisis in one's life, we seek an immediate answer. Please keep your... No thanks, sir. Take it away, sir. I don't want it. Where was I? We try to seek an immediate answer. And so, we never face that crisis. You're following all this? Face it. As you are now, if you are listening, being forced to face it. Under pressure of the speaker. But if there is no pressure and you face it for yourself, then what is that pain? Is it something that man has inherited from time immemorial? Go into it, sir. Go slowly into it. Like our brains, which we have inherited through evolution. The human mind, which is not your mind or my mind, the human mind, is that part of its inheritance. That is, the remembrance from fathers down to present generation, where man has never solved this problem. Or is it self-pity, which you are excellent at? Or is it the sense of deep, abiding, unconscious loneliness? Please, sir, follow all this. I'm not talking for my own pleasure. You understand? So we're asking these questions. So find out, sirs and ladies, if you're interested, whether this loneliness, if you ever known it, if you ever felt that desperate isolation, and because you have not resolved it, that isolation is part of this sorrow. You understand what I'm saying? That is, we are self-centered human beings. All our activities are centered in ourselves and we act from there. And this self-centered activity is a process of isolation. You see, I mean, that doesn't need explanation. Each person seeking his own fulfillment and ambition, his own pleasure, his own importance, and so on, so on, so on. All these are bringing about a self-centered, enclosing, narrow, limited activity, which ultimately, deep unconsciously, brings about this sense of terrible, depressing loneliness. And can you face that loneliness? Not run away, just observe it. When you so observe, you are bringing all your energy to that perception. Do you understand what I'm saying? And when you bring all your energy to that loneliness, then you will find, if you do it, your total energy, in which there is no escape, no running away, no suppressing, no trying to solve it, but this deep perception which brings total energy, you'll find that loneliness is dissipated. And the same thing, if you're caught in the explanations of your sorrow, karma, past life, circumstances, competition, you're not so good as your brother or your uncle or your, all the rest of it, this perpetual competition we indulge in, which means comparing, suppressing yourself in order to be like somebody, imitating, conforming. All that also emphasizes the narrowing down of this tremendous energy of the mind to a narrow center from which inevitably action becomes limited and therefore painful. You're following all this. And if it is the immemorial, handed down from generation to generation, this sorrow, then can the mind break that tradition? That is, to observe that tradition, if it is a tradition. Then with that observation, that perception is the gathering of all your energy to look. So out of this perception, observation, staying with the thing, you understand staying? That is staying, non-moving from this sorrow. Then out of that comes passion. And with passion goes love. Love is not lust. Love is not pleasure. Love is not desire. It is the ending of sorrow and the passion that comes with it, which is love, compassion. I know. What's the good of my saying all this, sirs? The speaker, to him it's a reality. It's something that to him is true. It's not false. He doesn't say anything which is not true to himself. It's not that I want to please you. I'm not interested. You can go your way and I go my way. I'm not exploiting you as an audience. I'm not relying on one's reputation, all that nonsense. because one lives this kind of life, therefore one is terribly honest. And next question is, good Lord. Oh, we began at 6. Death. The first thing is to ask oneself, if you're interested, why human beings have excluded death from living? Do you understand my question? Why human beings, from the ancient Egyptians to now, all the civilizations which have existed before, have put death at the end. 50, 10, 30, 80, 90, whatever the age. And never said, why are we excluding death from living? You understand my question? Please understand the question first. Why? Which means, what is living which doesn't know the ending? You understand my question? You know? So this, I don't know what I say, it's very good. You understand what is being said? Why have people written so much about death, volumes about reincarnation, remembrances of the past? The psychologists have mesmerized people and gone into the whole business of the previous life, and so on, so on, so on. Volumes. Philosophers, religious people, they, both Christian and Hindu and all the so-called religious people have written volumes. But nobody has taken the trouble to write about life. You understand? Our daily, iniquitous, immoral, fantastically stupid way we are living. Nobody talks about it, right? Only we say you must behave properly. So we are first inquiring what is living, right? And what is ending. The ending is what we call death. So we are asking what is living and what is ending. And why we human beings have put the ending as far away from us as possible. You understand my question, sirs? Right? What is living? What is existence? What's our life? Not super consciousness and all that nonsense, but daily life. What's our life? Is there never, please listen, is there never ending to something in our life? You understand? Ending, smoking, if you're a smoker, ending it. If you're a drug addict, ending it. If you are caught in this sexual imaginative pleasure, end it. So what is ending? You understand my question? And what is living? So I am saying to myself, ask, is do not living and ending go together? You understand my question? You understand, sir? Are you interested in all this? Not up here. I know you're all very clever at this kind of thing, but I'm talking much more deeply, more that will affect our life, our daily behavior, our daily conduct, our daily sense of existence. So have you ever ended anything without pressure? You understand my question? Anything without finding a cause, analysis, wasting time on it, say, end it. That's what's going to happen when death comes to you. You can't argue with it. Say, please give me a few more days. You can't analyze it, you can't discuss with it. I know the Upanishads discuss and all that, that's a poetic form. But if you're confronted with death consciously, not when you're unconscious, then you're out. But when you're consciously alive to death, you can't argue with it. That is, there is the ending. It means the ending of your brain, your heart comes to an end, the circulation stops, and the brain collapses. Which is the ending of what we call living. And when you examine, if you will, your own life, your life, not my life, not some saint's life, or some guru or some other imaginary or real, rather unevolved people. You accept all this? If you examine your own life, what's your life? A struggle, conflict, pain, sorrow, grief, and this ambition, competition, conformity, following a tradition blindly or accepting it. So that is business, going to your office from morning till night. So do you realize what your life is? That you go to the office from 9 till 5, right? And they are bullied. Oh, so what kind of life do you lead? And you will say to that, we can't alter the society in which we live. Very convenient, comfortable answer. Which that society, you, your grandfathers and mothers have created it, right? Through their ambition, through their greed, through their conformity, through their tradition, through their all the rest of it. They have created this thing. And so you are part of it, whether you like it or not. And to change it, you have to change yourself. When you begin to change yourself, you begin to change society. So, when you examine your life very closely, it's really a very sorrowful affair. And you rather go on with it and say, Perhaps I have a next chance next life. If you examine the me, the I, the ego, the soul, the Atman, all that stuff, what is that? You understand my question? You're following this earth. You believe in some kind of permanency, don't you? Some kind of entity that will get more and more polished as it goes along through time till it reaches the highest principle, Brahman or Nirvana or Moksha, whatever you like to call it. So you believe that there is an ego, a self, a higher self, the Atman, the soul, the principle, that moves from life to life, right? Right, don't you? If you're honest and if you're... Now, what is that? What is that thing that the mind clings to, right? What is that? Have you examined it? Or you've just said, yes, there is this permanent something marvelous in me. When you examine it very closely, is it not the result of thought? The thought of your ancestors, the thought which has been put in the Upanishads, or the Gita, or some Bible, or some book, the poets that have written the Gita, right? And they have established that through tradition, so that there is in you something that goes on through time, right? Right, sirs? Right? Would you be honest? That's your tradition, handed down. And when you look at it very carefully, impersonally, sanely, you will find, inevitably, if you are inquiring mind, that is nothing but the creation of thought. That is you. What are you? Name, a form, educated to have a degree or not educated. You are a lawyer, all the rest of it, a fisherman. You wouldn't be a fisherman, no, sorry. So, you're all that. Your sorrows, your greeds, your Brahman, non-Brahman, this and that. You're the result of all time. And therefore, the result of all thought. Thought is the response of memory. Memory is the accumulation of knowledge as experience stored up in the brain. You may accept it, may not, but scientists and the speakers talked about it many, many years ago, and the scientists now are beginning to accept it. So, you are that. You are nothing but thought. You don't like it, I know. So, now what is that? Knowledge can never be complete. That's obvious. Knowledge always goes with ignorance. Knowledge is always in the shadow of ignorance. Therefore, any thought springing from knowledge must always be ignorant. logical, sir. And so thought has created this entity separating itself from the rest of mankind as the me, the individual, who will go on. Right? Now, your mind, observe it, sir, for God's sake. Your mind, your brain is the result of thousands of years of evolution, both genetically and in memory, traditional. Your mind is that. Mind being the brain, your senses, your emotions, all that has grown through so-called evolution. It's not so-called, evolution. So you are not an individual. Right? Yes, sir, I won't like this. You are part of this vast mind of man. You understand all this? Look at it. I know it goes against all your tradition, against your own desires, against your own comfort. But it's a fact. But when you realize the fact, you enter into a world that is extraordinary, because you are the entire humanity. You understand, sir? Because you suffer, you have agonies, you have doubts, you are hurt, you are ambitious, anxious, uncertain, confused, like the rest of the human beings in the world. You are part of that humanity. You are that humanity. You may be brown, you may have, or white, or pink, or blue, or black. You may be tall or short. You may be an engineer and another a scientist, physicist. That's not what we're talking about. The human being inside, his brain. So, please follow all this. Then what is death? You understand my question? You understand my question, sir? When you realize the fact, an absolute fact, irrevocable, that you are the rest of mankind, you are mankind, the man who goes fishing naked, that poor woman sweeping the street, that little girl making mess in the road. You're all that. You are humanity. This is not a humanitarian idea, it's a fact. If that is so, not if that is so, it is so, then what is death? You understand my question? Please, sir, move. Also, then what is death? Then is there such thing as death? You understand what I'm... Oh, come on, sirs. I, born in this country, educated abroad, various colleges, all the rest of it, name, and certain qualities, like you. And one realizes that is your mind, your brain, your feelings, your senses are the essence of humanity. Then what is K? You understand? You follow what I'm saying? Then what is K? then what is death? If, when you realize and end this concept, it is a concept, a conclusion put together by thought that I am special. When that ends, that's what I mean when ending, then what happens? You've never come to that point, you see. So, when you end something, doesn't matter what, when you end an attachment to your wife, to your belief, to your gods, to your guru, to your belief, concept, when you end something, what takes place? Have you ever done it? When you end something, new takes place, doesn't it? Something totally new takes place. Doesn't it, sir? If one has a habit of smoking and you drop it instantly, what happens? Your body rebels, you go through all that very quickly. Not that I've ever smoked or drunk all the rest of it. It ends. Then you have lifted, the brain has freed itself from a certain burden. If you have ended an attachment, completely ended, then that tremendous burden of attachment with pain, anxiety, jealousy, all the rest of it, when you end it, there's something totally new taking place. But you won't do any of that. You will listen, you'll say, quite agree, it sounds very nice, but I'm too lazy, I'm too caught up in my own tradition, in my own, etc., etc. I remain there. This is the game you play all the time, knowing the facts and refusing to face the facts. So a man whose mind is the universe of humanity, to him there is no death. You don't get this. Because whatever he is doing, he is ending, never carrying. Then we must talk about meditation. It's 7 o'clock, we'll go on, if you're not tired. No? You jolly well should be. If you have exercised your minds, your feelings, your senses, you must be exhausted. The speaker is not, because he's, What is meditation? And why is it important to meditate? Why have human beings throughout the ages inquired into this? You understand this question, sirs? Can we briefly examine quickly and set aside completely every form of systems of meditation? Zen, Buddhist meditation, the various types of meditations of the Hindus, with their mantras, the repetition of mantras, japa, all that business that goes on. And the Christian form of meditation, the Tibetan form of meditation. They're all based, if you observe it closely, on concepts. Right? Concepts put together by thought. And thought says, I'm restless, I'm chattering all the time. There must be some time it's quiet. So you begin with a concept, follow it, sirs, with a concept that it must be quiet. It must be still. So you practice. You follow the system of that person or that person, that man who says, I know how to meditate, you do this, you do that. And we think he's got something which we want, and we are willing to buy what he has through meditation. Right? I'm sorry to be rather, but that's what we do, actually. So if you can see that all those forms are the structure of thought, which they are, then will you end it? That is, no system, no method, no practice, yoga, oh gosh, all the rest of it. So, it has been the speaker's misfortune or fortune to talk to all the experts about this. Zen, Tibetan, yogi people, they're all concerned with the control of thought, suppression of thought, following a system, practicing day after day, making themselves into machines. And this is called meditation, right? Would you acknowledge that? I know you practice meditation, you do puja, but it's all words. And you're like your gods, they're all put together by thought. So can we see the whole process of that from the great Himalayas, east and west and all that, and put all that aside? Then what is meditation? You understand what I'm asking? Certainly not standing on your head or sitting in a lotus posture, whatever it is. Not breathing. If you could, put all that aside. Then you will inevitably ask, conscious meditation is not meditation, right? Conscious, that is, the deliberate process of will, desire, compliance, imitation, practice, all that indicates a conscious effort by thought, by desire with its strong will to achieve a certain result. That is, to have a mind that is absolutely quiet. Right? Now, if you do all those things, practice yoga, all that, what have you done to your mind? Don't you see what you have done to your mind? Look at you. You have become machines. You have established a routine. Right, sir? Do wake up, for God's sake. So you see, follow it carefully. Conscious meditation, with all the implications involved, which I briefly explained, is no longer meditation. Right? I know. So, then what is meditation which is not conscious? You understand my... Because man, throughout the ages, has searched for something beyond time. Searched, looked at, inquired. Something that is incorruptible. Something beyond all experience, beyond all knowledge, outside of all human endeavor. Because human endeavor is the movement of thought in different direction. And thought born of knowledge is very limited. So he said, there must be somewhere something that is not perishable, that's incorruptible, that's timeless, eternal. That seed has been sown in man from time immemorial. You understand, sir? And we have got that seed moving all through mankind. And we have never opened or looked at that seed. We have said what that seed should be. You understand what I'm saying? For God's sake, move, sir. We have said what that seed must do, what its activities are. We clothe it with all kinds of ignoble or noble clothes. But we never said, this thing which man has started from time immemorial, I wonder if it can ever flower, grow. You understand my question, sir? That is meditation. That is, to begin a life, daily life, behavior which is correct, accurate, right, in daily life, where there is no conflict, where there is affection, care, not your children, care for the world around you, care for your woman, for your man, so that there is no domination of each other, no exploitation of each other. If that isn't laid down as a foundation, you can't move. Do you understand, sirs? What you are trying to do, you neglect all that and try to find some God somewhere. If you don't begin there, what you'll end up is an illusion. The word illusion means to play with something which is not real. It's an etymological word, ludere, which means to play. So you are playing with illusions, or rather you're caught in illusions, if you don't have your house in order. And your house is burning. And if you don't begin there, which is bring right behavior, right order, care, affection, love, compassion, which can only come when there's the ending of sorrow. Then you begin to inquire. Then the mind knows what it means to die, ending everything every day. Yes, sir. It's too long now. That is the mind. The brain is registering. Maybe quick. Doesn't matter. I'll show you something. The brain is registering. Registering in order to live, survive. Engineer, scientist, philosopher, whatever, the carpenter, fisherman. He must register. Otherwise he can't be an engineer. He can't. But psychologically, can we end registering at all? You don't know all these questions, God. What kind of brains have you got? To end your hurt immediately. The hurt which you have carried from childhood, or the hurt which you receive from your wife, husband, and your office, or whatever it is, the hurt inside, to end it immediately. Which is not to register the hurt. That means to pay tremendous attention when the hurt is beginning to come into being. So, meditation can never be conscious, can never be thought out, premeditated. Then you will find very naturally and very easily there is a quality of stillness in the mind. And it is only that enormous sense of stillness and silence. And the brain then is in a vast space. Then only truth can come into being. And that's real meditation. May I sit still for a few minutes, 2 seconds?